friends, and welcome to the CUInsight Network podcast. My name is Lauren Culp. I'm the president and CEO here at CUInsight.com. And it's my job on this show to have conversations with all of the thought leaders who support the credit union community. There are so many of them offering so much to our industry. And together we get to identify those issues that are affecting credit unions today and talk about the best practices that exist. The goal is to learn from one another and improve our industry together. My guests on today's show, we are lucky enough to actually have two today, are Libby Calderone, the president and COO at Envisant, and Tom Kane, the president and CEO at the Illinois Credit Union System. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Most of us did not grow up thinking that we would get to work with credit unions. So I always start off these episodes the same way, which is to ask what you wanted to be growing up. Tom, let me toss it to you first.
I would have to say when I grew up, when I was little, I was a real SOB, a son of a banker. Yes, I was a son of a banker. And I thought I might actually be a banker. And because I ended up with three brothers who were bankers. I grew up in a family of seven, four boys and three girls. And they all went on to banking. I tried to get into banking. Terrible time in the early 80s to go into the financial services world, though. So I wasn't really sure after that. I did go to study for international relations, though. So I really thought that I would end up in a job, which is what I ended up doing. My first job was at the CIA. And I went to get a master's in international relations with a concentration in Soviet studies. So, yeah, not your typical credit union educational background, but so I ended up actually doing kind of what I really wanted to do, but I thought I was going to have to fall into banking just because I had to make a living, but it turns out that I didn't have to. So I was happy about that.
That is a very cool story. You broke the mold of banking. Libby, what about you? What did you want to be growing up?
I did not have dreams of being a banker. Unlike Tom, growing up, I had dreams of being a doctor and was pre-med when I went to college. I joke that sometimes I'm the only finance grad whose general elective coursework is organic chemistry and molecular biology, but stayed in that for a bit and enjoyed it, but also quickly came to the conclusion that I needed to make a living when I got out of college, and I didn't know that I could afford to go to medical school. So I transitioned and moved over to the finance space and then began working in banking. So I lived Tom's dream immediately, began working in banking and have been in banking ever since. And it's actually turned out to be maybe serendipity, but also just the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I'm glad I had my career in banking and credit unions now.
Well, I would say, ironically, the only thing I knew I didn't want to do was become a doctor. So,
and I didn't want to do Soviet studies. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think everything worked out the way it was supposed to. Tom, so you said your first job was at the CIA. What was the journey like for you from the CIA to the president and chief executive officer here at the Illinois Credit Union System?
It was almost like it's almost like a sitcom because I left there. I loved working there, by the way. People were like, is it cool? And we're like, unbelievably cool. But I'm from the Midwest. My wife's from the Midwest, all family here. So it was really difficult being there. And I was posted domestically. So at Langley, Virginia, at the headquarters there. And I really enjoyed it a lot, but we just missed the Midwest a lot. And I tried to get a transfer. They don't have a lot of jobs throughout the United States. And so it was almost like a sitcom, though, because I left there and went to work for Quaker Oats. Because while I was at the CIA, I got involved in technology stuff. And then that's where I took a job at Quaker Oats to get into the private sector. And then from there, I moved into telecom and then ultimately insurance. So it's all these jobs and people, and my wife travels with me a fair amount when I go, and people are still like, are you guys still working there? Because you seem to go together and we spend, go to Washington, of course, with my job. I go to Washington a fair amount. So they're like, because she worked at the CIA as well, because they like to have family members there. So anyway, I just had these jobs, though, that were basically technology jobs at all these different industries. So about the first half of my career, I spent elsewhere. And then for the last 21 years, and I ended up getting a job with the league as the vice president of technology. And in the meantime, I kind of picked up the finance stuff. And so I became the last job I had. I was a vice president of finance, but I had the technology background, which I brought to the league. And then, I was here as a CFO, and then I got into more of the operationals side of things. And then, when the opportunity became open for the presidency, then I, put my name in. And so I've been president now for just over 9 years.
That is an amazing journey. You're probably one of few in credit unions who can say you started out in the CIA. Libby, what was your journey like from maybe pre-med, maybe medical school to, banking now as the president and COO at Envisant?
Well, my first job out of college was working in auditing for banks. And I began, just traveling around the country doing various bank audits, seeing just the diverse areas of banking operations, and just really, sort of getting a feel for all the different things that go on to run a successful bank. And so if anybody who's ever worked in auditing, I always say it's the most boring job that you'll ever have, but it's also the job where you'll learn the most, because you do get to see a little bit of everything. And it was a great experience starting there. But then I wanted to actually not be looking at things in the past. I wanted to be able to have more of an effect on the business moving forward. So I began my search for a new position and answered an ad for a loan officer job at a credit union. Quite frankly, not even knowing what a credit union was. So I was like, I don't know what this is, but I know about lending. So what the heck, I'll apply for this job. And the rest then really is from history there. I started working at a small credit union, got to do really every job in a credit union, became a credit union CEO then. And I say working at a small credit union as a CEO is like the ultimate MBA experiment, because you get to touch every functional area of a business. You've got to develop a marketing plan. You've got to understand the financials. You need to know human resources and how to manage your team. So you get to do a little bit of everything. And that's the really cool thing about running a small credit union. Over time, our credit union grew, multi-county area, multiple branches. So, it was a way to grow the credit union as well. And then my path came to Envisant about 6 years ago as the president of Envisant, and then got to deal with credit unions across the nation, not just my credit union.
That is such a cool story too. And to your point, the many hats that you get to wear at a small credit union can be such a good learning opportunity. Libby, can you tell our audience a little bit more about Envisant? My guess is many of them know what you do, but for those who don't, what does Envisant do and where do you really add value for credit unions?
Absolutely. And really what Envisant does is what appealed to me and made me make the transition, because it does. We work with nearly 2,000 credit unions across the U.S. of varying asset sizes, from the tiniest of credit unions to multi-billion-dollar credit unions. So that exposure to all those different asset sizes really appealed to me. And I think really two things that Envisant does well is, one, we're really good aggregators of business lines. So our primary product lines are in the card space: debit, credit, and prepaid card processing. And what we do is just aggregate many credit unions together, and then we're able to provide exceptional pricing and exceptional functionalities to them, because we are aggregating credit unions of diverse sizes together and using then different processors to deliver those solutions to them. We help with the implementations. We help with the fraud management of the programs. We help them grow their programs, which is kind of the second thing that Envisant does really well, besides being an aggregator, is that consultative advice sort of piece there. Because we talk to so many credit unions all the time, we hear what their pain points are. So we can go out then and find solutions that will assist those pain points. And it might be developing our own solutions. It might be buying a solution. It might be reselling or referring a solution. But we go out and listen and find ways to help credit unions with their problems. And that's sort of what's led to many of the investments that Envisant has made of late. And as those are solutions that we can help credit unions with as well. I know we'll talk a little bit more about some of those investments, but so that's part of it as well, is just finding good solution sets for credit unions.
That is super cool. For those who didn't know, we're also going to link out to the Envisant website in the show notes here. So if you're interested in learning some more information about the great work that they do, or getting in touch to do some work with Envisant, you'll see that link right in the show notes. Tom, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is more about the league itself. So under your leadership, I know that the league has invested in some really cool programs. You all do some amazing work. Is there something that you would say really sets the Illinois credit union system apart from others in the space?
Yeah, I mean, my immediate thing is probably kind of a trite answer. It's people. I mean, and it's such an overused phrase to say people are your most important asset. But I talk to our staff a lot about this. Is it absolutely is true in our case because we don't have anything else to sell except our people. So on the league side, it's the expertise of our compliance people or advocacy people or whatever. We don't have widgets. We don't manufacture anything. And even on the Envisant side, so our service corporation, we are mostly reselling other people's services. We provide a wholesaler sort of model there. And as Libby was describing, I mean, we provide volume pricing and those kinds of things to make it affordable for credit unions that otherwise may not be able to do that. But so we really have to rely on our people because that's why credit unions use us, either for a membership on the league side or as a customer. And we have a lot of tenure. We have a lot of employees that have been here 20 plus years. Even in our call center, we did a look at our call center employees. We have about 60 in our call center doing implementations or customer service work or whatever. And the average tenure was 10 years, which is highly unusual because that's usually one of the highest turnover positions. But we have people that are just experts in what they do. So the other thing is, I think, is because of Envisant, our league, it allows us to punch above our weight in that we're very financially strong. And so we may have more staff and, just a higher level people within our organization that a league our size would typically be able to do because Envisant is financially successful and financially strong. And we just have a great board that allows us to get into all sorts of interesting things, which is fabulous. And be able to, some of the things that Libby was describing, some of the investments we've made, particularly in the technology area, that certainly is a passion of mine, given my background and everything, but just that we've been very successful in being able to provide to our members and our customers.
Sometimes I think that the best secret sauce is just the most simple and obvious one. To your point, people, maybe it sounds like a trite answer, but it's the true answer. And so that's really cool to hear about not just the staff, but the board and the whole system and the ways that you all are able to move the needle for credit unions. I know that there's some really cool stuff going on at Envisant too, in partnership with Circle, specifically Circle Fund 2. Libby, can you share a little bit about that and how credit unions can participate?
Yes, thanks. So this Circle Fund 2 investment opportunity replicates a program that we started for Circle Fund 1. And we did that in Illinois, pulled that together pretty quickly. If you recall, when Circle Fund 1 launched, the minimum investment amount was $2 million. And we wanted to participate and be able to do something with that. But $2 million is a little too rich for our blood, so to speak, and maybe for many credit unions as well. And so, speaking back to that aggregation that I talk about, well, here was another example where we aggregated and brought credit unions together. And so in this case, we brought together 13 credit unions and 2 other leagues and ourselves. And we aggregated dollars together and we made the investment into Circle Fund. So what we did was issue a special share of stock in Envisant that a credit union or a league would purchase. And then Envisant aggregates that together and we make the investment in Circle Fund 1. We did that the first time. We did it just in Illinois and with 2 other state leagues. It went so well. We said, hey, now that Circle Fund 2 is launching, how can we do that again? And so now we're doing it nationwide. And our target market for this Circle Fund 2 investment is credit unions between $100 million in assets and $1 billion in assets. And again, these are credit unions who maybe don't have either the cash available to do the minimum $2 million direct investment into Circle. They don't have the risk appetite for it. For whatever reason, they can't do it. So we feel like that's kind of a nice wheelhouse of credit union size to make the investment. So it's an investment into Envisant stock. Then we take all the dollars we're going to aggregate together in that Envisant stock, and we will make the investment into Circle as Envisant on their behalf. But the gains and losses of the Circle Fund are passed through to the credit unions who've made this investment in the Envisant stock. Plus, they get the advantages of participating in all the circle stuff, if you will. And there's a lot of circle stuff there. There's leveraged terms that the fintech partners in the Circle Fund provide to credit unions for their product solutions. And that can be worth a lot of money. It might be, reduced fees over time or waived implementation fees. All the different fintech partners have leveraged terms that they provide. The other great advantage by participating into Circle via Envisant is you get to take advantage of, like I call it, the thought leadership. You get to hear these companies twice a month. Circle has these meetings, and these credit unions who invest into Envisant or Circle will get to participate in these meetings. And these meetings are new fintech solutions that are coming. It's discussions about trends that are happening in the fintech space. It's thought leadership with some of the brightest minds out there. And this is a way for us to bring this to credit unions who might not otherwise be able to participate in it. So the investment, in summary, it's an investment in Envisant stock. And then we make the investment into Circle, and the Circle Fund then sort of flows through back to those investors through Envisant. The only thing they don't get is they don't get to vote. They don't have a voting share with Circle. Envisant does that on their behalf. But otherwise, they participate in the gains and losses. And hopefully there's gains too, by the way. You're making investments in funds like this. So you do hope that they pay off and have a return. So you get the investments, you get the leveraged terms, the thought leadership. We just think it's a great way for credit unions down to $100 million in assets to get to participate in this.
That is such a cool concept, and further leveraging kind of that idea that we're all stronger together. I love that. I love the target market for that. And I have to mention too, a huge congratulations, because Envisant won the CUISO of the Year award, which is amazing. Tom, let me take this question to you. What do you think really contributed to winning that award, and what has the recognition meant to you all?
Well, I think what we've done with Circle is a great example of that, in that kind of took an idea, and I would have to admit this was our idea that I borrowed from Mississippi. Charles Elliott down there had done something like this with a different investment. And that's one thing that I've done a lot, is take these ideas that other people have done and then be able to take those nationwide. So I think that was a big part of the consideration when they were looking at Envisant for the CUISO of the Year. I think we've been doing this for a long time. The CUISO has been around for 54 years, so it's been a very successful model throughout the country. But we've done a lot of other things. Last year we just launched an association health plan with some funds from helped to sort of provide more competitive funding for 29 credit unions, and we had 191 lives in these small credit unions. There were credit unions that had less than 50 employees in them, that we launched this association health plan that we're looking to continue to grow over the next few years. We put something in place called CU Kind Day, which is picking one day out of the year to do, in which our credit unions here, and again, this was an idea that I borrowed from Minnesota. They had done something like this, but now it's expanded out to 7 other states. So what we like to do here is, if we get a good idea, we like to really push it out to people as much as possible, and put our money where our mouth is as well on these things. Because since 2019, we've put more than $4 million into the system, whether it be things like our In the Cellar. We helped launch that last year. It was a Children's Miracle Network fundraiser last year. We do all sorts of other. We belong to everything. We mentioned our association health plan. We put $800,000 into that last year to help launch that, and a lot of community events as well. So again, very supportive board on all these different things that we end up wanting to do. And I think that resonated with the CUISO, that, like I said, we've been around for 54 years, so longer than most CUISOs. There's not a whole lot that have been around longer than that. And we've just been very successful, and it's so nice to be able to have that service corporation then supporting what we end up doing as a league.
Yeah, absolutely. Libby, what about you? Anything else you would add to Tom's answer about what might have contributed to the CUISO of the Year award and what it's meant to you?
I think it's, as Tom alluded to, it's looking at our global body of work that Envisant has done. It's the service and the reach we have across the nation, touching nearly 2,000 credit unions, being supportive of the industry, making investments into new technologies we're always sort of, we're really good at the card stuff, but we're always looking for something else to do too. And for the next investment that's out there. And I think that helped as well. So between, our forward thinking that we have for investments and then our generous support and our generous heart towards the industry. I think that's really the things that help set us apart and make us CUSO of the year. That's who we are. So I'm really proud of our team because this is their award. They work so hard to help credit unions every day. And, for them to get this recognition, we were so happy because, these are people who live and breathe credit unions day in, day out. And that support is just, it's wonderful to have that recognized, what they do.
Well, big congratulations to you and the entire team. The elephant in the room for those who might know about the news is that there is a transition coming up on the team that involves both of you. My guess is many have heard the news already, but Tom, can you share with our listeners that may not have heard the news what this transition is going to entail and when it might happen?
Sure. I am retiring at the end of 2024, and I am so pleased that Libby will be taking my position as president of the league, CEO, president of both the league and Envisant. Thrilled that Libby joined us over 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. Actually, she was serving on the Envisant board at the time. I was just so fortunate that she was able to come because I had in my mind at a certain age, I wanted to retire. I love what I do. I love all the people that I do it with, but I'm not getting any younger. And if I want to run for president in 15 years, I figured I should start now. No, I'm not going into politics.
You vote, Tom.
No. But I had told my board about 5 years ago that, this was the age that I was going to wrap things up. And I was flattered. They asked me to stay on in some sort of role. So Libby and I are talking about me doing some consulting work to stay on with the league. I keep joking to people that I'm going to become a part-time hourly employee to help with the transition and also just some special project things. Again, I love the technology stuff, so I serve on a few boards. So I think I'm going to kind of do that kind of thing, but really mostly just stay out of Libby's hair and let her take off and run with this organization.
Libby, what would you add? Anything that you're excited about or anything else for the transition that you are looking forward to?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the transition, and I feel really fortunate that I'm going to still have Tom around that I can bug about information and, hey, what about this? And hey, what about that? And, he fancies himself the historian of the Illinois credit union system, which he is. And I know that I'm going to have to access that archive of information regularly as we move forward and have decisions. But no, I feel really blessed to also have such a great board to get to work for. I mean, it's just, working for credit union CEOs is pretty amazing because they are fabulous board members because they get it. And I'm just excited about being able to still help continue to impact the operating environment in Illinois that credit unions have, push credit unions to think more strategically and deliver solutions to their members, and just really try to find ways to help the whole movement grow and thrive. Because, I'm not done yet, but I get to keep working for a little while longer. And fortunately for me, I get to ping a great resource like Tom moving forward as well. So it's the best of all worlds. So I'm very fortunate.
She has to put up with my long explanations of why we do what we do and what happened back in 2007 and through 2012 and why we're doing this. So she's very patient with me.
Those history lessons are really important because they give you that perspective of why our decisions are today. So he's downplaying it, but it's actually a wonderful thing to have those resources. So
that is
the files on the network somewhere that I've got buried.
I just ask you, go find a file on the network. So.
That is so true. Well, Tom, congratulations on an amazing legacy within the credit union system. And I'm sure your impact extends far beyond. So thank you for everything that you've contributed to the system. Libby, we're so excited for you to take the reins. As we look to the future, Libby, I'll say, what is your focus for the road ahead at the Illinois credit union system?
Well, the thing that I think about a lot is consolidation that continues to happen in the industry. And where's that going to go? And are we going to end up with just, 4 credit unions at some point down the road in the industry? And are we going to be able to stay strong? And so I think about that a lot. And how can we help credit unions grow and thrive, whether they want to be big or whether they want to stay as a small niche player as well. We need to make sure that we have the environment created for them and the products and services available to them so that they can still operate the way they want to operate. So I'm really focused on how can we impact that dynamic and that environment that they exist in. What's our role in that? How can we influence it? And how can we assist credit unions? So yeah, I think a lot about that operating environment, being from a regulatory concerns, financial, economic, and just helping credit unions piece all of that together because there is so much out there and the pace of change is so rapid. The credit unions need a trusted resource there. And so I want to continue to build our team to think about that. What's the credit union of the future look like in 5, 10, 15 years? And how are we helping credit unions get their strategic path in place to have that path to excellence? So that's going to be my focus going forward, is just continually asking our team to think and ponder what's going to happen, listen to credit unions, pay attention to the environment that credit unions operate in. It's exciting. Change is exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting and fun too. So we're going to have nothing but a lot of change coming up. And I want to help credit unions navigate that change.
It is the only thing that doesn't change, right? The presence of change.
Right.
That is so exciting. And thank you so much for sharing, both of you. It's wonderful to have you both on the show and talk about what the future looks like and all the amazing things that you've already accomplished. As we wrap up this episode, I always like to have some fun with rapid fire questions to let our listeners get to know you a little bit better. I will say the questions are rapid, but your answers do not have to be. Are you ready?
Ready. I like rapid answers too. Okay, let's do it.
Question 1, Tom, it's coming to you first. Get ready. Who is someone in your life that was a great leader and what makes them so great?
It's an easy one because it's my dad. I mean, I mentioned before, father of 7 kids, worked a lot. So he was gone a fair amount as a banker. He was kind of a correspondent banker. But when he was home, he was completely home. He was a great role model, very engaged with all the kids. He'd go out and play with us all the time. He was just a great role model. And the interesting thing, I was just visiting my son out in LA over the weekend. And the nice thing was he said the same thing about me, which was the ultimate compliment about how he wanted to have kids and raise them the way that he was raised. So to me, that's what matters the most out of everything. All the business stuff and everything is great. But my dad was a very good businessman, just all that. But even better, he was a great dad.
That is amazing. I love that. Libby, what about you? Someone in your life that was a great leader and what made them so great?
Oh gosh, I've had a lot of great leaders and been blessed to work with a lot of great leaders in my life and follow them. But, Mr. Kane's one of my great leaders that I've had exposure to in my life. And I know he's going to be like, don't say that, but it actually is true. And what sets him apart is his listening skills. He's a great listener and then gets out of the way and lets people do what they do best. And a good leader does that. They recognize what people's strengths are, and then they let them run with it. And I think that's what's been impactful to me from Tom's leadership. And obviously, you see that he's self-deprecating too, which is very endearing. But that listening and letting people do what they do best. And I've tried to follow that in my career, and I've had several leaders who have had that same sort of mantra about them. And I think that's just really powerful when you have that good listener.
That is a great answer. Question number 2, Libby, I'll come to you first for this one. If you're going to splurge on something, say you want to treat yourself, what is something that you might invest a little bit in, whether that's time or resources?
Oh, that's pretty easy one. It's going to be travel related, and I'm going to find somewhere fun to go. I'm going to read a little bit about it so that I know what to look for when I get there, and then I'm going to travel there. I love to travel. I love to learn about different people, different cultures, different experiences. And so that's my ultimate treat and my ultimate splurge, and just learning a little bit about how people live. And I don't want to go sit in a resort somewhere though. I want to get out there and see what the locals are doing, what they're eating, what they're experiencing. So, but you got to do a little bit of homework before you go. So I always like to do that part too. So definitely travel.
I will have to come to you for your notes on the best places to go. Tom, what about you? If you're going to splurge on something, what is something you might invest a little bit in?
So people that know me I'm kind of cheap, notoriously cheap. So I don't splurge on much. I would say my house, I'm literally in the process right now of having it demoed almost right to the studs. And the splurge of it is I'm having somebody else do all that work. I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of renovation work on a house over the years because I'm cheap and because I had 4 kids and didn't have a lot of money to spend on things. So I've always done all that stuff myself. So my big splurge is right now just kind of taking the house down to the studs and redoing it, which is going to take a while. But I've saved the basement for myself so that once I retire, that's what I'm going to do. Is one of the many things is I'm going to renovate the whole basement and do a lot of landscaping and all that stuff myself because I do like outdoor projects. So while you get the advice from Libby about where to go, I can tell you advice on how to renovate stuff, how to swap out a garbage disposal. How about that?
I like it.
Numbers work for a league president.
Tom's got a job as a handyman, sounds like, Tom, if you need
it. Yes, I don't know that I'll be doing the renovation work myself, but the landscaping I'll take you up on. I like that. All right. Random question for you both. Tom, I'll take this one to you first. If you travel for work, I know many of us do. When you see a city come up on the agenda for whether it's a conference or a client visit, what's that city that you're really excited to go to?
I was just in Las Vegas, and I would say that is the opposite. It was 110 degrees, not good at all. It was just at the AAC. But I would say the one, I still love DC. I'm a political junkie, lived out there, still have friends out there. And there's always something going on out there. Not always good, but there's always something. And I know it well, having lived out there. I know all sorts of kind of off the beaten path. And the food is marvelous out there. And like I said, for political junkies, it is the place to be. So
that is a great answer. Libby, I'm excited to hear your answer, that city that you're most excited to go to.
Oh, I like to go to them all because they all have good food. They all have interesting things. But a place my husband and I like to go to a lot is Miami. He is Cuban and we love good Cuban food. And Miami has got, the best Cuban food in the U.S. So if you want good Cuban food, head to Miami.
All right. Credit union conference planners, Miami and DC. Those are top recommendations. We're taking notes. Okay, Libby, what is a book that you think just everybody should read?
Oh, Lauren, this is a hard question. I would like to say should I say the Bible? Should I say a business book? Should I say fiction? But, I'm going to give a bit of a trite answer here, but I'm going to say the book I think everybody should read is a book that you will read because I don't think people read enough. So if you love nonfiction, read it. If you love fiction, read it. But just read a book because it makes you think. I mean, I'm a reader, but I read a lot of junk fiction all the time. And I read the business books and I read them all and they all have good points in them as well. But just the most important thing is just to read because you think about the structure of the book, you think about the content, the words that are used. So any book is a good book to read. We don't read enough anymore. We don't read books enough. Tom just said at the beginning of this, before we got on here, he was talking about the stack of books he has next to his bed that he hasn't read yet. And we all just need to read. So that's my book you should read. Anything, just read.
I like it. That's the first time we've gotten that answer. So that is
okay.
Tom, what is the book you think everybody should read?
Well, I don't know how often you got this one. I would say War and Peace. I had worked down in the city of Chicago and took the commuter train, about a 45-minute train ride each way. And I spent 6 months of my life on the train reading War and Peace. It's just a wonderful, wonderful read. Very complex to the point where at the front cover, I was writing the different names because there are all these long Russian names and stuff. But it was just a wonderfully written book, and it's an accomplishment to get through. Like I said, 6 months of train rides to be able to get through it. And when I got done, the cover was torn off and pages were ripped and all that stuff. But it was just a great thing to get through. So I was very pleased about it. I can barely make it through about 4 pages at my age now, and just being busy and stuff. When I go home and I try to read a book, and I'm just out like that. So
that's a tough one, Tom. Tolstoy is, that's a tough read. That's that Russian studies.
Great reader, great writer. I actually have read a number of bunch of his books, and just, again, being sort of a Russophile, read a lot of different Russian authors. So
I like it. We're going to link to that book here in the show notes if anyone needs the link to it. Good luck with the 6 months it might take you to read it, but I will add it to my list too.
yeah, more than a beach read.
That Cliff Notes version available?
Watch the movie.
Awesome. Libby, what has been your best hack for creating balance and integration between your work life and, I like to call it, your life life?
Okay. I don't know if it's a hack, but for the last year and a half, I have been doing a 10-minute yoga thing every day. I do 10-minute yoga. Got my husband into it now. I find it very calming, very settling. And well, one is, of course, we age, just having a little bit of extra stretching doesn't hurt any of us. But yeah, I think it's very relaxing and sets my day. I do it every morning and it just gets my day off to a good start. So centers my mind. So that's my hack, I guess, to find some balance there.
I like it. Tom, I know your life is going to look a little different next year, but up to this point, what has been your best hack for creating balance and integration between work and life?
I think it's been the hybrid work has been the best. I just have completely enjoyed, and I found extremely productive, just, being able to just roll out of bed, go right to work, and I probably have worked more than I ever have over the last couple of years, but it hasn't been particularly stressful. And then at times I find myself coming into it because I travel a lot and all that kind of thing. So find that coming into the office is very grounding, and sometimes I just need that. I just think the flexibility of all that has just been fabulous. And I know from our staff perspective, because we have surveyed our staff a bunch of times and we pretty much let managers decide this. And Libby and I have lunches with, we just do random lunches with staff. And this is one of the biggest feedback that we get, is that people have just found out that a hybrid work schedule has just been sort of liberating for a lot of people. And I think has really led to high retention among staff as well, because sometimes people leave just simply because they do have better opportunities for hybrid elsewhere. But we have found that just hasn't been the case with us.
That is amazing. We're going to link to everything we talked about today in the show notes. My last question for both of you, Tom, I'll come to you first, is do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share or any final asks of our listeners today?
Well, I was going to say one of the things we just did last week, which has been one of my favorite things that I've done since I've been here, is the I Love My Credit Union Day. So that was last Friday, July 26th, and we had thousands of people all over the country. And I love going through all the stuff on social media about that. And that's something that was our fourth annual one that we've done. And after the first time we did it the first time. It was a lot of explaining what it is and why people would do this and what are we getting out of it and all that kind of thing. And first of all, the last question is we get nothing out of it except the fun of having started something that has sort of taken the credit union world by storm on one day at least, just to try to get attention to all the great things that credit unions do. And so for me, that's just been, it's been awesome, and been very proud about how that's all taken off. And I love seeing credit unions and all the different things that they post on that day. So that'll be one of my legacies. I'm good with that. So.
That is amazing. Libby, do you have any final thoughts or final asks of our listeners today?
My final thoughts actually kind of ties into Tom's a little bit, because my final thought is for all of us just to remember how blessed we are to work in this industry. I mean, it's a great job where you can come in and say you really are affecting people's lives and improving their lives. And, we're in the people business. And I always tell my team at the credit union, get your story, get your people's story. Remember a member that you impacted significantly and how their life changed because of their relationship for the credit union. And then on your worst day, remember that story, because that's why you're here and that's why you're doing this job. And, I remind people of that it's like this really is the people business, and we really are doing great stuff. So let's remember that and keep our people story in our heads.
That is the perfect note to end this episode on. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Libby, both so much for being here today. It is so great getting to connect with you.
Appreciate it, Lauren.
Talk to you. Thanks, Lauren.
We hope you stay well. And thank you to all of our listeners today for tuning into the CUInsight Network podcast. And we will be back again next time.